hidden kingmakers of democracy. Every election tells us the same story. The people choose, the ballots are counted, and the winner becomes the face of power. But what if the real power doesn't lie in voting booths, but in back rooms filled with criminals, cash, and coercion? For decades, organized crime groups, especially the mafia, have played a quiet but decisive role in shaping political outcomes. From stuffing ballot boxes to financing candidates, intimidating voters, and rigging results. The mafia has operated as the silent kingmaker behind presidents, governors, and senators. Their goal isn't ideology, it's access, influence, and protection. Politicians get votes, the mafia gets power. In this documentary, we uncover the untold history of how mobsters have manipulated democratic systems in the U.S. and abroad, using fear, fraud, and favors to install leaders who serve their interests. And the truth is, they're still doing it today. 1. Chicago 1960, the election that changed everything. One of the most infamous cases of mafia involvement in U.S. presidential elections happened in 1960 during the razor-thin race between John F. Kennedy and Richard Nixon. It's long been alleged that Kennedy's father, Joseph P. Kennedy, made a deal with Chicago mob boss Sam Giancana. In exchange for swinging Illinois and West Virginia, two critical swing states, Giancana would receive protection for his operations and influence in the White House. In Chicago, the vote was suspiciously one-sided in key districts controlled by Giancana's machine. Dead people voted. Ballot boxes were stuffed. Poll workers were threatened or bribed. Nixon lost Illinois by just 8,000 votes, giving JFK the presidency. Although never officially proven, multiple insiders confirmed the back-channel deals. In return, Giancana expected favors, including help with his operations in Cuba. But after JFK's election, Attorney General Robert Kennedy launched an aggressive anti-mafia campaign. Giancana felt betrayed, and within years, both Kennedys were assassinated. This wasn't just election fraud, it was a dangerous alliance that turned deadly. 2. New York's political machines and mafia muscle. Long before presidential races, the mafia had already mastered local politics, particularly in New York City. For decades, Tammany Hall, the Democratic political machine, worked hand in hand with crime syndicates to control city elections. The mafia didn't need to run for office. They just needed to control who did. They provided muscle at polling stations, threatened opponents, and used unions to influence thousands of votes. In return, politicians offered protection from prosecution, favorable contracts, and access to city budgets. Public construction projects became mafia-controlled gold mines with inflated contracts and kickbacks going to both mobsters and their political friends. This model, crime-funding campaigns in exchange for policy favors, became a blueprint replicated in cities across America. The alliance between corrupt politicians and criminal enterprises helped normalize mafia-backed politics, blurring the line between governance and gang rule for decades across entire districts. 3. The voting union, how labor became a mafia tool. Throughout the 20th century, labor unions were a powerful political force in the U.S., and many of them were controlled or heavily influenced by the mafia. Unions like the Teamsters, under leaders like Jimmy Hoffa, held sway over millions of working-class votes. These votes could be delivered in blocks, especially in industrial states like Michigan, Ohio, and Pennsylvania. Mobsters infiltrated these unions not just for money, but for influence. They used pension funds to finance casinos, real estate, and illegal businesses. And in return for political endorsements or campaign donations, they received legal leniency in government contracts. Elections weren't about winning debates. They were about cutting deals with whoever could deliver votes in bulk. And no one delivered votes like a mafia-run union. Entire election strategies were built around these blocks, with politicians depending on mob-controlled leaders to activate or suppress voting depending on what was needed. 4th, voter intimidation and street-level manipulation. While fraud at the ballot box gets headlines, physical intimidation remains one of the oldest mafia tools in electoral manipulation. In cities like Philadelphia, Newark, and Chicago, mobsters would be stationed at polling booths, identifying voters who oppose their candidate and convincing them to go home. Sometimes it meant threats, sometimes it meant violence. In heavily contested districts, mafia-controlled precinct captains oversaw the vote count, discarding ballots and rewriting results. Others used fake registrations, repeat voting, or transported out-of-state voters to cast illegal ballots. These tactics weren't limited to the 20th century. As recently as the 2000s, FBI investigations uncovered cases of organized crime involvement in voter fraud, particularly in local elections where outcomes could be swayed with just a few hundred votes. And in poorer neighborhoods where turnout was harder to monitor, the mafia would simply pay off community leaders or use fear to control political messaging at the grassroots level. 5. International interference. Mafia politics beyond America. The mafia's manipulation of elections isn't just an American story. Organized crime has had a major hand in shaping governments around the world, especially in countries where institutions are weak or corruptible. In Italy, the Sicilian Mafia, Cosa Nostra, has long influenced political outcomes. During the Cold War, they supported anti-communist candidates, sometimes under direct encouragement from U.S. intelligence, in exchange for protection and power. In Russia, oligarchs with ties to organized crime financed political campaigns, controlled media, and shape public narratives. In some cases, they helped install entire regimes favorable to their economic empires. In Mexico, drug cartels fund candidates at every level, from mayors to presidents, expecting loyalty in return. Political assassinations, vote buying, and mass intimidation are all part of this deadly game. Globally, organized crime has learned to play politics not by opposing democracy, but by hijacking it. Sixth, campaign financing, legal bribes, and backdoor deals. While ballot manipulation is risky, money laundering through campaign finance is subtle and effective. Mob-controlled businesses and shell companies have often contributed to political campaigns on both sides of the aisle. These donations, while legal on paper, often come with strings attached. In cities like Las Vegas, Miami, and Atlantic City, casinos and construction companies linked to crime families quietly bankrolled candidates. In return, they received zoning favors, tax exemptions, and inside information on upcoming legislation. What seemed like legitimate political support was often a massed exchange of favors, where the real cost was policy manipulation. Even at the federal level, PACs, political action committees, and super PACs provided an easy way for clean-looking donations to flow in from dirty sources. The more expensive campaigns became, the more politicians were forced to rely on donors who didn't ask for policies, they asked for protection. In many cases, these donors dictated who got indicted, which contracts were awarded, and even how certain laws were written. Behind every glossy campaign ad often stood a silent investor with a criminal ledger and political ambitions. 7. Digital crime, the new mafia election. Machine today's mafia isn't just about guns and street-level threats, it's about digital power. Organized crime groups have entered the age of cyber manipulation. From running fake social media pages to launching coordinated disinformation campaigns, they help sway public opinion, discredit opponents, and create confusion on election day. Some use bots to amplify propaganda, others hack voter databases or manipulate online donations. Cyber criminal syndicates with ties to mafia groups offer their services for a price, selling stolen data, creating fake identities, or breaking into political servers. This is the new frontier. Voter suppression has gone digital, and the mafia's role in it is expanding rapidly, because in a world driven by information, controlling the narrative is the ultimate power. Democracies' silent hijackers elections are the cornerstone of modern democracies. But behind the banners, debates, and campaign slogans, a darker influence often lurks. The mafia doesn't need to win elections, they just need to control who does. From ballot boxes to bank accounts, street-level intimidation to cyber warfare, organized crime has learned how to hijack the system quietly, effectively, and with little consequence. And while governments boast about free elections, many outcomes are quietly shaped by invisible hands. So the next time you cast your vote, ask yourself, who really benefits when the dust settles? Whose agenda just gained power? If this video opened your eyes to the underworld of politics, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. Your awareness is the first step in exposing the truth, and there's much more to uncover.